Welcome to What Car Should You Buy, a weekly show where we ask the big questions about the car market. And then someone on Renlist runs into this video and asks if we're part of a grand conspiracy to drive down the prices on 996s. If you're in the market for a higher-end sports car and you aren't intractably anti-American or curiously pro-German, you'll soon discover that a nicely equipped Corvette Z06 costs about the same money as a base Porsche 911. We've heard for decades that the new Corvette is finally as good as the Europeans, but for once the critics are finally right. The new C7 Corvette is fantastic. On the other side of the Atlantic is the Porsche 911, a car so good they've never had to seriously redesign it. It's like the David Hasselhoff of cars, delicately improving its performance and aesthetics with each new generation. Well, almost each new generation. But while you can get everything you'd want out of a Corvette for about $84,000, you can't even get a new 911 with the little painted crest on the wheels for that much money. This leads to the obvious question: fully loaded Corvette or a 911 with no options? Let's talk cars! Joining me today are Time Inc.'s main car writer Jason Harper, a man who has gone on so many press trips that he's now 30% free shrimp, and Travis Okulski, site director for Road and Track, who recently appealed the restraining order that the Mazda Miata PR team has against him. Gentlemen, thank you for joining me. Let's talk 911 versus Corvette. So, Jason, stripper Porsche or a very well-equipped Corvette? What do you think?
I mean, basically, somebody said that the $84,000 was our magic number, right?
84 is the magic number.
You've got an attaché case, and it's got 84 grand in it, and what are you going to buy, right?
Very specific kidnapping. Very right for you.
That's 84 cash. Well, so what do you think? I mean, so you can get the 911 basically starts at 84. Or
I mean, a 911, base 911 without the PDK starts at 84, you know, and then a Stingray starts at 55. So you can basically get a 3LT with everything cool on it, carbon fiber, you know, the magnetic shocks,
right,
and make it awesome, and it'll still come in under 84.
How much
or just
under?
buy couple grand.
Couple grand.
I mean, you could probably go over 84 with the Stingray, but you'd be hard pressed.
But you can add 30 grand in options to that car.
Yeah, sure.
So you'd have everything on it.
It would be pretty awesome. Or you could just go ahead and buy the Z06.
You can buy the Z06.
And you couldn't add anything to that either, but.
Do you really need to?
Do you really need to?
I don't
Does the Z06 come with all the...
It's very good in the stock form.
It's good.
It's actually the highest top speed in the stock form, too, because it doesn't have any of the aero bits that attach it to the ground.
So Z06 and base 911 start at the same price?
Yeah.
Is that true? Both were 84, basically.
Yeah, although really, you know,
or take.
You actually get floor mats and carpeting and things in the Corvette.
Because
you have to pay for the seat belts and extra in the Porsche.
The Z06 is the higher trim level, so it got a bunch of stuff on it already, whereas the base 911 is the base 911.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's pretend, going back, let's pretend you...
Good comparison, Doug.
Well, thank you, I do my best.
Yeah.
Let's pretend, going back to, you got the 84 grand. What are your thoughts? Would you go equip that Corvette with everything, or would you go base 911?
Or Z06.
Or Z06, yeah.
I do think it matters what you're going to do with this car. First of all, you're lucky. You don't have to be particularly practical if these are your two choices, which is awesome.
Yeah. Right.
And you know, there's a place to put the backpack in both cars.
Both cars. There's a very ample trunk in the Corvette.
Yeah,
you have children with no legs, you can take them with you in the Porsche.
Too.
Yeah. Well, good. We're doing cargo room here. We're 2 minutes into this, and we're talking cargo room. Now let's talk fuel economy.
Let's get down to the real thing.
What's really important?
Leg room really
which
interested
which
in.
stereo sounds better?
Yeah.
Dude, it's a good choice. I mean, these are fun things. I would probably, I will say I'll probably get unless I was tracking hard, I would probably get the Stingray.
With
put everything nice on it and have a great time, because you still have so much control, so much performance in the Stingray. You could rock it out. You could still take it to the track, and you would not feel like you were pinching every penny like you did when you're in the Porsche and you're looking at the gray expanse of plastic.
Right. It's all right. What do you think?
I think I think it depends on what you do with it, but you can't ignore the screaming deal that the Z06 is at that price for 650 horsepower, 650 pound-feet of torque, a manual gearbox, everything you could want in a car.
So good.
And you spend 84 grand to have something that goes 200 miles an hour.
Do you know there's a little plaque on the Z06 that says 650 horsepower, 650 pound-feet?
Wouldn't you be proud of that too?
I don't know if I'd put a plaque.
Okay, and let's be honest.
Well, you know what? That's attached with glue. You can take that off.
You can take it apart. With both cars,
in fact, that's the first part that probably falls off the Z06.
So that's an interesting point. Do we not think that the 911 is like better made? I mean, is the theory for the Corvette has always been for years that it's not quite as good as its foreign competition, but it's cheaper.
You hate America, don't you?
I hate America. Let me tell you something. I drive the most American car that humanly exists.
The Nissan Skyline.
The Nissan Skyline. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Anyway, is there a point about the fact that maybe the 911 is better built and you'd rather have that rather than just some hotted up Corvette?
It's interesting because normally the argument for a 911 is the 911's been around for so long and it's been the same design and they've honed it over all these years. The Corvette's been around for like the same amount of time as the 911, and it's been the same sort of design that's been honed over all these years.
Well, it strikes me the Corvette changes more when it's updated. The 911 looks largely the same. The C4 Corvette is a little different. I agree. Is a little different than the C7. Do you agree?
Well, but in
so
19...
they've all grown in size. I mean, and they're talking two engines. They're two of my favorite engines. You know, the small block and also the inline. These are two classic, fabulous.
The flat six.
Flat six. God damn it.
It's an inline flat six.
Yeah.
We'll hedge difference there.
But indeed.
Yeah. But either way, you guys are both basically saying the Corvette is the obvious choice here because the 911 is just so basic and you wouldn't want to even
I think it used to be that, you know, the 911 was a better car than the Corvette, so it was worth that amount. But the Corvette is so good.
You think the new Corvette is good enough to justify?
Yes. I think that the new Corvette is good enough where if I was actually making this choice, which I don't think I'll ever have the opportunity to do, I would say that I would probably go with the Corvette just based on the amount of performance I can get and just how good it is.
Interesting. Yeah. What about the fact that the 911, you see a guy driving a 911 and he's like pretty cool, right? Like a guy's got a 911, you know what I mean? But you see a guy in a Corvette, there's a stereotype. Does this not affect you?
Well, it's a pejorative on both. I mean, also, yeah, he's a Corvette guy, terrible. But also, everybody's like, oh, he owns a 911, he must have a small dick, right?
When people say he owns a 911, they're jealous. When people say he owns a Corvette, they're like, oh, he's a dentist who rides Harleys, right? Like, that's kind of...
I think some people... But that's also a guy who owns a 911.
Yeah.
The thing that nobody talks about is the same people
you think so?
can afford these cars.
Whenever I see a 911 driving by, it's a guy who's like in his late 30s who works in finance, and this is what he thought he had to. You know, he's like, oh, this is the cool car. It's like whenever it's a Corvette, it's like an older guy who's, you know, he's like trying to make something happen.
I think there's some truth to that, but fuck all the boring people. Wouldn't you rather be driving one of these two cars?
Yeah, I'd rather be driving one of them.
Fuck what they think.
So, but it's really, so you would be like, forget it, I don't care. It doesn't
you know
matter.
What? I'm having more fun than them no matter what, and you and your
So their opinion doesn't matter. So you're like, whatever. You're going to buy the car regardless of what
I don't
they
give a
think.
shit.
You feel that way too? You like you
buy the car for yourself.
Yeah. But I mean, at 90 grand,
to
you say that,
people.
but a lot of people who are spending this kind of money don't feel that way. Regardless of whether they admit it or not, people who are spending 90 grand on a car are buying it to impress other people.
This is why Porsche sells more base 911s than Corvette, and
true?
Chevrolet probably sells. I don't know this for true.
There's a lot of base 911s.
There are a lot, but no, there's a lot of people. Now we're going to get into stereotyping people, but there's a lot of people who walk into a Porsche dealer and say, "I need a convertible, please," and then you walk out with a Carrera 4 convertible in like Miami, which is a car you don't need there, but because it was the car on the lot, they bought it.
They bought it, right.
And I don't see the same, I don't think there's as many people walking into a Chevrolet dealer and going, one Corvette, please.
Yeah. It's a car that people aspire to.
You know what a car that is really necessary is the 911 Turbo S convertible. That car makes total sense.
Yeah, and it's double the price point here, right?
I've never driven one, but I can't imagine.
I'm teasing. Well, but unfortunately, also the Z06 convertible is also kind of a stupid car. You don't make these way more powerful.
You say that.
I do say that.
You know how many of those are going to sell?
Well, they sell
How many?
Like all of them.
To your point, Doug, those are the people who don't really care how the cars drive. They care how they look.
So let me ask you this: if you had 88 grand, so you can make maybe a few options on the 911. Would your opinion change? In other words, you don't have
a shit ton of money.
No.
I just drove the 911 GT3 RS.
Okay.
And I would
That's
basically sell my liver for that car.
How much does that car cost?
It's going to be $180.
Okay, so that's a little strong.
That's a
little out of our price.
But I would
here.
buy that rather than any Bentley in the world.
Well, that's good.
Clearly.
I don't think anybody shot. I wouldn't
shop
buy. I wouldn't buy
GT3 RS versus
I'm going to get a
Bentley.
Bentley Mulsanne or a GT3 RS. I don't think that's a.
Isn't it a cross shop?
See this? They're not doing this.
You know, Bentley claims a GT3.
Yeah, Bentley's got that. All right, so but really,
anyway.
So you got 90 grand, whatever. You can put a couple options on 911. It doesn't have to be a penalty box. Would you immediately switch your opinion, or would you still be like, nah, or would you just go for a Z06?
I mean, you could tantalize me pretty easy. I could
How
be
much
swayed.
would it take for you to say 911 instead of Corvette?
Badge delete probably. That would be all that it would take him to get there.
Well, I mean,
which is actually a $0.
Let me throw something crazy. How much is a 996 GT3 these days?
Is 50s, 60s, 70s.
You know, I mean, there's not many deals to be had, but the 996 is now, you know, you're talking, or you know, somewhat beat up even 997 GT3.
80s.
then
Absolutely,
then
you're in the
that-
range.
Yeah,
You're in
yeah.
the
Then I would change my opinion pretty quick.
Well, for 84, would you rather get a used 911 than a new Corvette?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. Sorry. Yes.
Done.
Yeah.
Can I get a 911 GT? We said I can get a 911 GT3 for 84.
I don't think you can afford a 997 GT3, but I think you can get one with accident history, which I think would be
Would be fine for you.
would be fine for you. I don't think you could tell a
I
difference.
don't have accidents.
Well, no, but I think that
Watch, now I go out
You
here
drive
and-
around New York City, you don't
I've
care,
driven
right?
with you before, and we came back with damage.
Oh, that's true. That was in a Chevrolet, though.
That was in a truck. so, you know.
That was in a truck. We went off-roading hardcore.
That's
But
good.
anywho,
that press drive, they're still wondering about
if I
that.
could
They
get like a
won't anymore.
997 GTS
Yeah,
for 84,
you probably could.
Well, here's the thing. Also,
So you guys are really close. So you're basically saying
here's the thing.
good
I
decisions.
really like 911s.
right. So you're saying you really like 911s, but the absolute stripper base model is not the one to get. You're just saying.
Every day you got in that car, it'd be fun to drive, but you'd think, God, if I only had the red stitching, you know, the seat belts, which only cost $2,000 with the red stitching.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't think, oh, if only I had a Corvette.
No, you wouldn't.
Corvette people, you think they're thinking if only I had a 911?
No, I don't. I think
No.
the thing is, it's a joyous thing to be in a Corvette, and the new one is so good, and the engine sounds amazing. The Z06 is as good
Yes.
as most Ferraris I've been in. I mean, it's just fabulous. You're not hurting. You're not feeling the lack of anything.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
They're different. They're different. You know,
They're different cars.
Do you like bourbon? Yeah, I love bourbon. You know, do you like great beer? I like great beer too.
And so you're saying that the 911.
No. To see, you're making your own assumptions.
I think as people, we both prefer, as a person and whatever Harper is, we prefer the 911.
You
as
prefer
a
the
car.
911. So you'd rather have a 911, but for 84 grand, it's not going to happen. You'd rather have a Corvette.
Which is Porsche mints its own money. They should just have Porsche money. You know, forget the euro. Porsche's money is much more. And the problem with that is they just charge a shit out of everything. I mean, anything you actually want, they're just, you know, of course you want.
Yeah.
Well, forget about 911 for a sec. What about Cayman Boxster? Would you have for 84 grand? You can get a damn nice Cayman.
You can
Boxster.
get a GT4, can't you? Isn't the base price on the
Yeah,
Cayman
it's
GT4
pretty-
84?
88 or
If
something.
you can
It's
find
like
one, if you can
84,
find one that's
88.
not being marked up,
Which, best of luck.
Which
but
is possible,
But sold.
but-
no,
right.
sold. Yes.
so you would.
absolutely. Yes. Boom.
So basically, what you're saying is here.
I haven't driven the GT4, but I
haven't either
Would
yet.
you take
But-
a mid-engine Porsche Cayman Boxster over for 84 grand over a Corvette? Any Corvette Z06, Z06 or like a nice
Z06
Cayman.
or a Cayman GTS?
Yeah,
I would probably go with the Z06.
you'd go with the Z06.
Yeah.
God, these are good problems to have.
These are good problems.
Because
To
a
have. They're
Cayman
legitimate problems.
I've never seen a Cayman GTS for less than like $95,000.
Well, yeah, but you could spec it yourself. You can walk into the dealer and do it.
I know you can do those things, but I think that for 84 grand, I would probably get a Corvette, because at the level of the Cayman GTS means you're going to get going to the track, you're doing all these sort of things that the Z06 is so brilliant at, that I would probably go with the Z06.
You go with the Z06.
Probably.
And I do say the level of adaptability that the current Corvette has, and that take all the controls off, you also can, you know, have some, a little bit more, means that no matter what level driver you are, you can exploit your own talent.
Right.
Or make
Yeah.
yourself look like an asshole. And that's one thing actually the 911 doesn't have at this point. I mean, it's either kind of on or off.
Right.
You're no longer going to get like snap oversteer like you used to, because
Right.
they've dialed that out. But you know, in some ways, the Corvette is going to be a lot more thrilling. You could do a lot more silly
do a
things
lot
with
more
the
silly things.
Corvette
There's
than
no doubt
a
about
base
that.
911, which is only, by the way, 350 horsepower versus
Is that right?
650.
350. That's it.
Yeah.
The base 911.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not that much power. They put it to the ground really well. Though.
But boy, I mean, it's a beautiful thing.
There's
to
nothing
get-
like a 911. Walking
To
out
get a
911.
911 that accelerates as fast as the Z06, you have to get a 911 turbo.
Right.
And you have
Which
to
is-
spend, what, 100, and Turbo S, you have to spend like $180,000.
And it's not a fun car.
automatic only.
That is not a fun car.
It's, I think it's fun to accelerate in.
And then you get over.
Well, but
it.
I mean, now we're talking about who 0 60 in 3 seconds. I mean, okay.
I never have.
I'm not frequently doing that kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well.
I mean, I'm it's rare that I'm in a situation where I'm slamming the pedal down and I'm going. So who really cares about that? It's all about more about the driving experience.
I was just
I
making an
understand.
example for the viewer.
Yeah, thank you. The viewer appreciates it.
I'm sure they do.
So we pretty much.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
we all feel like for 84 grand, the Corvette is probably the better value. But we all wish we could have a Porsche. If we bought that 84 grand Corvette, would we be thinking, how much do I
I'd
want?
be pretty happy.
You'd be pretty happy.
I'd be pretty happy.
I think so.
I would want a Porsche. I wouldn't take the base. I wouldn't take a stripper.
Hey, I'd wait for my second 84 to come around.
I'd get a used.
Well,
I'd get
that
a
next
used
year
Porsche
might not be
in a
as good as the year where you're able to get the.
It's all imaginary money anyway.
Well, I hope
That's
you can
true.
afford the taxes and the insurance if you've only got the 84 grand.
Well, used 997 GTS. Then here we come.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, guys, the base 911 I don't think is as stripper as everybody thinks it is. I'm going to tell you what is standard on a base model 911 Carrera. You ready?
Yeah,
19-inch alloys.
it's pretty good.
Automatic bi-xenon headlights. Automatic means they go on automatically. Now the Cruise has that also, not bi-xenons though. Rear parking sensors, standard on Cabriolet.
That's
obviously.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's not much visibility. Heated mirrors. Dual zone automatic climate control.
Ooh,
Again,
same as a
automatic.
Four-way adjustable power seats, so dual power seats.
Ooh, four
Four-way
ways.
is a little weak, but still.
Wait, what are
power seats?
The 4 ways are
It's
forward and
back,
backwards.
and then the backrest goes forward and back. Yeah.
That's 4 ways. So that's 2 ways. It goes forward and backwards, and the back goes up and back and forth.
a manual tilt and telescoping steering wheel, but it tilts and telescopes.
Just like from 1942.
Hang on, now it gets better. Leather upholstery, 7-inch touchscreen with a navigation system, Bluetooth, and a 9-speaker audio system with a CD player and a USB/iPod interface. That's not bad.
That's enough.
That's like a luxury car.
That's
Well, it was 20 years ago.
You know what cars come with that now?
iPod's leather,
$80,000.
nav,
do you know-
automatic bi-xenon.
do you know what
You're
cars-
impressed by 4 ways? You lose 4
What are they
goddamn
doing
ways
with that?
for
Just put a
$84,000.
couple extra
Meanwhile,
ways in those seats.
Meanwhile, like your typical Hyundai has
You know what
every
you just
single one of those
described?
for $14,000.
Yeah, that's true, but the Hyundai doesn't accelerate and turn.
No,
like
well,
But you know what you just described? Every car.
every car.
every
you know
car
what-
is
you know what-
nav standard,
you know
automatic
what-
bi-xenon
you know what
headlights,
cars-
rear engine, 345 horsepower. The car is not as
You know
stripper
what
as you think.
cars come with almost all of those things? All of them.
No, that's not true. You cannot. What car comes standard with nav and automatic bi-xenon? All I'm saying is this. You can live
You
with
can
this.
get
I
nav
wake
in
up.
the
if-
Chevrolet Spark.
Yeah, you can, but it's
Yeah.
not standard. You got to pay for
Here's
that.
the problem.
You pay
Is-
14 grand before you get nav.
is when the guy pulls up next to you in the GTS, your heart's gonna hurt a little bit. Okay, here's what you get in the Corvette.
Yeah.
You can get carbon fiber trim. You certainly get the performance package, which is
Yeah.
kick-ass.
Yeah.
You could get
The
really
comp
nice
seats.
leather, the comp seats. And it's not really like, I don't think Travis nor I really want like a bunch of crap. I don't need, but I do want the stuff that will make the car faster and perform better. And really importantly on the Corvette is the magnetic shocks, which
Yeah.
are fabulous.
Amazingly good.
And that is one of those things that you definitely want to spend that extra money on.
Yeah, and the base 911 doesn't have PASM, does it? Or doesn't have the sports suspension, does it? It just has
Yes.
it has a suspension.
And actually, those seats aren't
yes.
great as far as even keeping you.
Right.
They're not well bolstered seats. Those
I
base
mean,
seats.
we're not talking about. I'm not trying to defend it because I would still have the Corvette, but I don't think the 911 is as basic as everybody likes to pretend that it is. Everybody says, "Oh, you got to add all these options to make a Porsche good." Well, you don't need leather air vents. You don't need the seat belts to be deviated.
No, but what's a bummer is you don't get the. What's the sport
Chrono Pack?
Chrono Pack?
yeah, but Sport Chrono only really makes sense if you want PDK. See, that's the thing because like I would rather have my 911 with a stick, and Sport Chrono gives you essentially a stopwatch. And then for PDK it gives you launch control.
Yeah.
But I don't need
I don't
launch
want
control.
launch control. You know what I do want is exhaust.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love
What
that.
Corvette has exhaust options, I assume.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, stock. You can choose like every mode you want to. It keeps the baffles open all the time, and it makes it.
Your neighbors will help.
Wonderful.
So the Corvette's got a lot of cool stuff. The
Corvette's pretty
911,
badass.
the 911 is
Corvette's pretty
equipped
cool.
like a Camry XLE. The Corvette has a lot of cool crap. for
Yes.
84 grand.
Yes, it does.
Do you agree that the 911 isn't as bad as he thought?
It sounded like you described generic car A to me.
But it's
when you
not.
told me.
It's not like we're sitting on cloth seats and manual seats and
I would,
manual.
like
I would
a lie. I'd
rather
like
have
class
cloth
seats.
manual
Me too.
seats than those 4-way
Yeah, me
seats.
too.
And you're sitting here complaining about how it doesn't have enough stuff, and you say you'd rather have cloth
But
seats.
No, it
It's-
doesn't have the right stuff.
Yeah, right.
So
stuff.
you would rather have them do cloth seats and manual seats, and you'd rather have, but you want your Corvette to have
and add 40
magnetic
extra
suspension.
horsepower. And
Well, magnetic suspension's good.
it's awesome.
Well, yeah, the power in the 911 is a little low, but ultimately it's still an amazingly fun car to drive. And they're both awesome cars to drive.
You know what? If I drove a 911 every day, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, I
Even
mean,
if
the
it was-
power is
if
not
it
a
was
huge
it was
concern.
it was a stripper. I mean, let's be honest. That's a pretty good problem to have.
This
Yeah,
is the ultimate first world problem.
It is the ultimate first world problem. You got 84
So the
grand
nice
cash.
thing is that Jalopnik's going to pay each of us $84,000 for appearing,
And to test
and
out
we will
this-
do
We'll,
it.
we'll come
and
back in another
a
episode to
3-week
see how
off.
we chose.
We're going to buy the car, and then we're not going to be able to pay insurance or taxes, and we're going to be so screwed. We're going to have to sell it. Okay, so
And on that note.
our general agreement here is that we'd rather have the nice Corvette, but we really would like a Porsche, and those are really, really cool.
Yes.
Well, that is a great conclusion.
that you made.
Do you disagree?
No, I agree.
Thank you. So you made it too.
Okay.
Jason, you agree?
I'm in.
That's all we need to know here. Thank you guys for coming in. We appreciate it. It was an interesting discussion.
Sure.
And up next, we're going to talk to Tavarish about some used car options. Many of you who regularly read Jalopnik know Tavarish as the guy who convinced you to buy a used Viper instead of name-brand Lunchables for your kids. Now he's here every week to counter our new car bias by finding the best used car you can get for the same price online, culled from reader responses. What do you have for us today, Tavarish?
Well, Doug, since the question of Porsche versus Corvette on the used car market casts a pretty wide net, I posed the question to what other exotic sports cars you can afford for a more miserly sum of around 50 grand, which is round about what a good Corvette C6 Z06 or Porsche 997.2 is going for anyway. As it turns out, you get quite a lot for your money.
I suspect you can.
All right. So the first car I have is a bone stock 1998 Acura NSX. Now it has a little more than 50,000 miles on it, and it's just under 50 grand. But what I think is that it's a pretty good value. I mean, considering that the only cars you can get for around that that price range are going to be automatics with maybe 200,000 miles on it by people that think that their car is just, you know, gold on wheels.
Yeah, it seems like a pretty good deal.
I mean, it's just, I think if you buy it now, even with the market the way it is, you'd get paid to wait, you know, because now it's at 50 grand, but they're not making any more of them.
Right.
So after maybe even 5 years, you'll see a return on that investment.
Plus, the NSX is nice and reliable.
It is. I mean, it has a engine essentially from a Honda Accord. I'm not sure. I'm sure that there's people out there that's going to say, no, it's actually, you know, it has different rods and
yeah, but it was ultimately just a 3-point-something liter Honda V6.
Right. It's a J series, you know, V6 engine. I know that the engine bay is a little bit more cramped than.
It looks a little cramped when you open it up because they got a trunk back there too.
Yeah.
Got the old trunk engine bay set up, right? Isn't that true?
Yeah, they do. I don't think that it'll be a problem having it serviced by any Honda or Acura dealer, but I think that any shade tree mechanic worth his salt
is going to be able to work.
Should be able to work on it because it's just a naturally aspirated V6 engine that doesn't really make a ton of power. So.
And they were fun cars. They handled great.
Yeah, I mean that was a whole draw to the car because it just handled great. It didn't want to rip your face off with speed.
Black isn't really the color though. Don't you kind of want it to stand out a little bit? I mean, red was the color they used.
You do. I mean, this example, it's a black on tan car. The tan is very nice.
It is nice actually.
Yeah, it has like nice supple leather, and the one in this car looks like it's in pretty decent shape. The black I don't have a problem with. I think NSXs look fine in black.
They look sleek. But red was the color, right? Like everybody got it in red.
It is, but again, they're getting more scarce, and
if beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, so this one is all original, so I think this one is sort of the one to get.
Well, the NSX is a great car.
It is.
So what else you got?
Well, the next car I have is a 2011 Lotus Evora, and that's brought to us by Bonehead Auto.
Okay.
Now, this one has 46,000 miles on it, and
it's pretty strong.
Yeah, I mean, this car, it kind of got a bad rap, and they didn't sell a whole lot, but I think it has a lot in common with the NSX. You know, it has a 276 horsepower V6 from a family sedan.
Yeah.
And
I never thought about that.
It's really underrated for what it is. You know, it's a 2+2. So it's practical. It's a Lotus, so it's relatively light. I mean, I know it wasn't the lightest car that they have, but they're really undervalued in the market. I mean,
what does this one cost?
This one is, I mean, it's just under 50 grand.
50 grand.
But it's practically brand new. It has 46,000 miles on it.
And this is a stick shift.
It's a stick shift, yes. They don't really, with a 3.5 liter, V6. From a Toyota, nothing's going to go wrong with that car for many, many hundreds of thousands of miles.
Only the Lotus engineered parts surely will break.
Well, even then, like what can really go wrong? I mean, the Lotus engineered parts are non-moving items. That they're just control arms, stuff like that. Maybe the electrics, but the electric, I'm pretty sure they outsource.
No, on my at least, nothing really happened except the air conditioning went out, which I assume is a Lotus part, and they had to take the whole body off to get to it.
Well, yours wasn't the K series, right? Yours was the later like Toyota engine.
Yeah. It was a 1.8 liter Toyota. So this is a 3.5
that's when they
liter
smartened
V6.
up. Yeah.
So this is a pretty cool car.
It's an exotic car for people that don't really want an exotic car.
Right. It's a Lotus for people who need something a little bit more practical than an Okulski.
Yeah. So
practical and daily drivable. So this person's got 46,000 miles. So this sounds like a daily driver.
It might be. I mean, it's a weekend driver. Considering the car's 4 years old, 46,000 miles, not not too crazy, but yeah, it's definitely a commuter car.
So what else you got?
Well, the next one is a 2008 Aston Martin V8 Vantage, a car that's after my own heart because I'm trying to look for one right now. And that was brought to us by a user, Too Much Commuting.
Okay.
It's a good username for someone who would, would suggest a V8 Vantage. It's a good weekend car. Now, the reason why this car is so great, not to wax poetic too much, right? It's a competitor for the Porsche 911. But the Porsche 911 probably edges it out in performance, like handling and stuff. But this is a V8 that's dry sump. It's hand built. You have a little plaque that says, whoever built it. Right. So in case cylinder comes out of the block, you can just go, hey, listen, what the hell did you do?
You can fly to England and go to his place. Knock on his door.
So the entire car is just. They use this thing called the golden ratio. And the golden ratio is it's kind of what the human brain like how it perceives beauty. So every single angle is like there's no bad angles on this car.
It's a very beautiful car. It's
Yeah.
much more attractive than the V12s. So what does this thing cost? What are these used Astons? What are these?
Well, you can find them in the mid 40s, like deep 40s.
Find them in the 40s.
Yeah.
And these are pretty reliable cars. I spent a couple of weeks ago. I spent like an hour on the Aston forums, and there's nobody's complaining about these things. They're surprisingly bulletproof, which is stunning for a British.
The only thing
hand-built.
I can say is like maintaining these cars.
Yeah.
It's probably a little more expensive just because the transmission is going to be in the back.
Right.
The clutch changes are going to be a little more involved.
Yeah.
Changing the oil, there's 2 drain plugs because it's a dry sump system. You can't just drain the oil pan like you would in a regular car.
But these are fairly simple things. I mean, you got to understand what you're getting into.
Exactly.
You don't buy this thing hoping you're going to get a Camry. You buy the Evora if you want to get a Camry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to temper it in the fact that now you have an exotic that just happens to be $40,000.
Right.
Yeah. So that's. I truly think that this is the best exotic value, like exotic used car value that you can buy on the market today.
I think so too. I would highly recommend 3 pedals instead of the.
Oh yeah, the sport shift is garbage. It's just absolutely unusable. Don't get it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you. I think you're right.
Yeah. So you have to get the manual. I mean, even then, the manuals are just priced a little bit higher, but never don't get the sport shift. It's just really bad.
No, that is a great car, and it's a good suggestion.
Yes.
Well, thanks, Tavarish, and thanks to everyone for tuning in. We'll be talking about all the cars in the comments below and on Jalopnik. And don't forget to subscribe for some more great Jalopnik content. But before you go, I leave you with this question. If 2 trucks are 10 miles apart, traveling towards each other at a speed of 60 miles per hour, how far from the crash site will you be able to find Ford F-150 parts?
Douglas!
Yes, Mom.
Can you bring up the drain snake?
In a minute, Mom.
There's a clog in the dishwasher
I'll bring it up, Mom. Yes, Mom.
Camera 2 speeding.
Hi, camera 2.
Camera 3 speeding.
Ugh, camera 3.
Where do you look to?
We got a bunch of cameras.
There's your
Look at
camera.
me. Look at me.
What do I do?
You're talking to me.
What do I do with my hands?
You're only talking to me. You don't do that. All right.
Now, if you could get a Kia Sophia, 16 Kia Sophias, or 1 911, which would it be and why? Why are your shoes got lifts on them, Doug?
Well, there's Sandra Bullock has these. Well, thank you guys for coming in. That was an interesting discussion.
Thank you, Doug.
Okay. How far from the crash site will you be able to find Ford F-150 parts?
Oh, Doug, I'm sorry. I forgot I was supposed to shout at you.